Everyone. Hope everyone is having a fantastic day. Welcome to Liza's Painting Parties. I'm Liza, and this week we are going to paint our version of this photo by Michael Lyons Photography, Open Road. So we are going to do our painting styles and try to capture this beautiful image through acrylic paint. I'll walk you through how I will be approaching it, and you are welcome to follow and join in. If you have any ideas or any ways that you would like to approach and want to add into the comments, please feel free. Normally these paint parties happen on Wednesday evenings at 6 p.m. So this is a little bit different than normal. So some of you may be catching me live. Maybe this might work better for you, and some may have not seen this before. So what I do is every week I host a weekly live free painting party, kind of like, I guess, like a book club type of concept where we all have the image in hand, and then we all go about creating our version of it in paint. So, and we kind of discuss accordingly to what we all enjoy doing. So I've never painted this image before. This is the first time that I'll be painting it, but I'll be walking you through how I'll be going about recreating this. All the photos that we use as inspiration on Liza's painting parties are from Michael Lyons Photography. He's a Canadian-based photographer, and he has stunning images. So I'm very happy to be partnering with him and being able to use his image and have the rights to do so, which is very exciting. And so the way I look at it is when we are painting or trying to capture something from a photograph, I like to do it from a painterly perspective. So I try not to make it look exactly the same. I do want it to feel like a painting. So I want to have the strokes. I want to take some liberties on it. You may want to go a totally different route and make it look more cartoonish or abstract, or throw in random colors, and that's very much welcomed and appreciated. So feel free to make it your own and do what you like. I'll start talking through how I'll be approaching this in just a moment. For anyone, so for anyone who hasn't seen this, so every Saturday I put up 3 photos on my under the Facebook page on a post. And the one that has the most votes by the following Tuesday at noon is the one that I paint live that week, normally on Wednesday nights at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's how we've been doing it. This is the 77th paint party. So all my previous paint parties are available either on my YouTube channel, Liza's Painting Parties, or on the Facebook page. And they're all free, so you can go on and paint away. If you see something that you enjoy and you want to try out, please feel free to do so. If you are enjoying these paint parties and you would like to leave a tip, there's a link there for buymeacoffee.com, so you can go ahead and do that if you want to, not required. Alternately, if you want to host your own paint party, you can definitely reach out to me and just send me a message, and then we can talk about that as well. I offer private or virtual parties as well. If you're close to like this area, I'm in Toronto, like close to Toronto, so in Ontario. If you wanted to do in-person ones as well, we can talk about that too, since some of the restrictions have lifted, and I don't know if it's nicer now. It's actually quite muggy and gross outside, but we can always have a conversation about that if you so desired. Anyways, all right, so in terms of supplies that we need, so let's talk about that. I have a canvas. I use an 11 by 14 canvas board for most of my paint parties. I have a stack of paper towel. I use acrylic paint. The paint that I use is just from like the dollar store, so they're pretty cheap paints, acrylic based. So if you have red and blue and yellow and white and black, then we can make any color from that. I do also have some premixed greens and browns and whatnot that I might dip into as we go. So I'll talk through that, and I'll talk through how to mix your own colors as we do it as well. I also have something to mix my paints on, or to just, use them from there. I have some water containers, so I have 2 kind of ready to go. And then I suggest having at least 3 paintbrushes. I suggest having one that will give you nice coverage, so a nice large brush. And I use a number 10 when I'm doing an 11 by 14 canvas. But again, it really just is in relation to whatever size canvas that you're using. And then I use a medium size. This one I think is the size 2 to get some more variety. And then I use a fine point brush as well to get my detailed elements that I like. So I suggest having just the 3 sizes. It doesn't really matter what types of brushes you use. If you like, I like long handled brushes. If you like, whatever you like is all good to go. And that is pretty much that. Hi Trish, I'm so glad that you're viewing. That's fantastic, from Trinidad. Oh, that's great. It must be so nice there. Right, today here is very, very muggy outside, very gross. It's like supposed to rain, so it's one of those like, it's just gross until it rains and then it breaks and then it's all right, you know? All right, so I'm gonna move the camera in a moment so you can see my canvas a little bit better, and also to see the inspiration photograph as well. So we'll have that in view as we paint. And if you can't watch right now, this video again will be up on under the videos tab on Facebook, my Facebook page, or also on my YouTube channel once we're all done painting today together. All right, so I'm going to just move this and then I'll move the camera and then we'll go from there. I guess we can start, actually before I do that, I'll start by saying where we're going to start off on this. So whenever I look at painting from a photograph or from any type of reference image, I want to first decide how I want it to be on my canvas. So this image is obviously in landscape, so I do want to keep that perspective. Sometimes you may want to change it up and do like a portrait instead, and that's again totally up to you. So I'm going to keep it in the same type of flow. When I look at the image and I look at like where everything is positioned, it sometimes is helpful to have a pencil and then to kind of like sketch out slightly like where things are going to land on your canvas. I do that sometimes and sometimes I don't. It just depends on the flow, and I would say just do whatever's comfortable for you. So when I look at this image, that horizon, the midpoint there, is about right in the center of the actual image. So right in this like smack dab in the center, that's where I want that point to be. And then everything kind of comes out from there, right? So that horizon line kind of stretches across, but then that's where my end of the road, where we can't see any more further, kind of lands. And then it comes out. And then you want to take a look to see where it comes out to and mark it. So as you can see, the road doesn't come like down into the corner, it comes a bit further out. So that gives that perspective a bit more. So I think what I'm going to do, you can see it, it's a little bit hard to see at the moment, but I'm just going to lightly mark in more or less where I want that road to be. And I want it to kind of end about, the looks here, it's like almost like a third of the way up the canvas. If we break it down into 3s, it's about a third up, right? So I'm going to do the same type of thing. So I'm going to say, okay, if I'm going to break this up into 3, we're looking at about, here is 1/3, here's about 2/3, and there's about 3/3. It doesn't have to be perfect again. It's just to get an idea of where that's going to land. So like this is actually going to come out more. See, and I'm already doing it, and it's more of a curve. I kind of want to make it more of a straight line. That's not working very well. There we go. Right, and the same thing on this side. So I'm going to say about a third up, and I'm going to bring it across, and you can use a ruler or something more straight edge to bring you straight. I'm just going to, just to visually know where it's going to be. So my road's going to be similar to that there. Okay. That line looks really bad, so I would use a ruler if that was the case. But that's just, again, I'm going to be painting over it anyways, but just to give me an idea of like, so this whole area here is going to be my road and where everything's coming down, and then we're going to have all of our trees, and we can't even see the tops of them because they're so tall and beautiful. So that's just to give me an idea of where things are going to land. Where I'm going to start with it is I'm going to start with whatever's in the furthest background. So what I want to put in place first is I want to get some sky happening, and this particular sky is almost a white. It's like a very white. I'm going to put a little bit of blue just to give it a smidge of like a very light blue. So that's what I'm going to do there. I'm going to start with that. So I'm just going to do a nice light blue wash, like all the way on the back. Sorry, I said wash, and that might sound like I'm just doing it with a lot of water, and I don't actually mean that. So I'll walk you through how that looks. You can do something with more water based too, and that would be fine, because again, that's just to get that feeling of sky, and then we'll be able to then put all of our trees and have everything on top of it, but I definitely want that sky to peek out. So that's what I'm going to do very first, is that's the first thing I'm going to do. And then I think what I'm going to do once I've put my sky in until about halfway mark, even though you don't even, I am going to go halfway even though it's not fully necessary, because as you can see, you can only really see the sky poking up maybe in the top third, but it's not really going to be an issue if I do it all the way down. So I'm going to do it probably until the middle mark. Once I do that, then I think I'm just going to color block some of the areas just to mentally know where I want things. And then I'm going to put in more detail. And I'll talk through that process when we get there as well. Okay? So first up, let's get some sky going on. So I'm going to put this here. I'm going to move my camera so you can see this a little better. You don't need to see me. Looks like a volcano I drew. It's kind of funny looking. Oh, hi, Asif. I'm so glad that you are here. Yay. I'm feeling much better. So yesterday, normally, like on Wednesday nights is when I do my paint parties. And I had a really bad migraine last night. And I was hoping it was going to pass. It kind of came on around 3-ish in the afternoon. And I was like, okay, my paint party's at 6. It should pass. It should pass. Like, shouldn't be bad. And no, it absolutely did not. It got a little better, but it's still, I was not in the right headspace to be fully present with you and to actually talk everyone through this. So I had to delay it. So I really appreciate, all of you have been really supportive. So I really appreciate your kind comments, and yeah, I really appreciate it. So we'll do it today instead. Anyone who can't join, of course, you'll be able to watch it any time you so desire. It'll be available for you. Oh, thank you so much, Maria. That's very sweet of you. It did, Terry. Thank you. It did work. By like 8, 9 last night, I felt much better. I think it was actually brought on by I'm really sensitive to fragrances, and silly me, I put like a scented candle. Like I had a couple candles going because I wanted my house to smell nicer, and I think that was the trigger that just made everything not happy. Okay, so what I'm going to start with, because I want this just to be a nice light breezy background, is I'm just going to put a light layer of water using my big brush all across the back of or the top half, I should say, of my canvas where our sky is going to live. And by doing this, so acrylic is water-based, so when you're using water, this will help spread the paint more. However, it does also dilute it. So when in this situation, because it is very much in the background and we just want that feeling of sky, it's going to work fine for us. Sometimes it works nice just to get color on the canvas and you can kind of build from there. However, if you put too much water, it just like makes the paint way too thin, and it's not very great. So I'm going to start with my white paint since the sky is so light. So I'm going to get a lot of that white paint, and I'm just going to start putting it right on top of the water, which again, anyone watching, you really can't see anything happening because the canvas is white. So it just looks like I'm just probably putting more water on it probably at this point. But I'm just going to get some white paint on top of the water that I put on first. Okay. So I can see that everything is very wet and there's a nice amount of white paint happening on here. Okay, and I'm just going pretty quickly because even though I put water, it will dry pretty quickly, and I want it to be smooth because now I'm going to get a little dab of blue on my brush, and I'm just going to throw it in these streaks. And then now I'm just going to go back and forth because, as I said, we already have like that thin layer of water. We put white, and now I'm just going to make my very light blue sky. And if it's a little streaky, that's totally fine. I kind of like it that way. But again, we're not really going to be able to see it too much behind the trees. I'm going to put a little bit more blue in there. because the trees are just gonna, and the branches. I mean, I might have the sky poking out more than our inspiration image, but we'll see. So just boomba bimba, back and forth. A little bit more here, even though, yeah, that's lower, but that's okay. Just to get it light. And as you can see, I do like to mix right on my canvas. Some people like to do it prior, so you mix the paints all on your palette and then use it. I like to do it this way. This is, you'll notice most of, when you see my videos, I tend to mix right on it. I like doing it that way personally. So I have the sky there, and I was going to go all the way down to the horizon, but maybe it's not fully necessary because there is a lot of green bush happening. I'm going to put a little bit more white, I think, but that's about it. There we go. Okay, perfection. All right, so now that line's really bothering me because it's way too crooked. I should have just used some kind of straight edge to give me a straight line, but that's okay. We will get that done in a little bit. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to color block where I want to put things. So what I want to do is I want to put like a gray down on where the road's going to live, just for me to just start to place where I want things, and then I'll end up putting more texture onto it afterwards. When I say afterwards, realistically, once I start putting it on, I might start doing it right away. But my intention is just to color block it so we can kind of have a base we can play. So the way I'm going to get my gray, similar to what I did with the blue up at the top there, I'm going to start off with just putting a little bit of water where I want my road to live. And it's okay if it goes like over, like if you end up, because you have like ground and stuff on the side, and that's fine. You can always paint over it if it ends up going a little bit further than you so desire. Not a big deal. Okay, so now it's nice and wet. And if it gets a little too much, you can always use your paper towel. So here I just felt like it was a little bit too runny. When you're using a canvas board like me, it doesn't soak in the water the same way an actual canvas does. When you're using an actual stretched canvas, it almost feels like you put the water on, but it feels almost dry, but it still does this kind of, allows you to spread things really nicely still, even though it does dry a lot faster. Okay, so, or it feels like it dries a lot faster, I should say. Okay, because it's like, it's material, so it like soaks it in. So I'm going to start again with white. Oh, sorry, I did actually dip my brush into the black by mistake. But that's okay, because it works out to what we want to do. That's fine. But I did actually want to do what I did at the top. So I wanted just to get white down in this area to start. And then I was going to add a little droplet of gray, or black I should say, and then start to mix it into this gray road. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so now we have the basis for the road, just so we know where it's going to live. And do we want to do more with it right now? Let's see. So we could. There's some like nice speckling that's happening. Do we want it to be speckled? I don't know. Maybe we want it more smooth. Let's see. Let's play with it a little bit. Why not, right? So my big brush, I'm just going to, I want to make it a little darker. So I just put a little bit of darker black paint on here. Let's do a little bit more here too. It absolutely looks like a mountain. I'm drawing like a mountain in the sky right now. It's funny. Gotta get those trees and other elements in it to make it look more grounded. Okay. No, I'm gonna leave it for now. I'm just gonna block it like I said initially that I wanted to do. Okay, and so then we have this lovely, almost like orangey brown brush, like ground that's happening on the side. So I want to pop that in as well. So if you don't have orange already, you can mix some red and some yellow. And if you have brown, that might be kind of nice as well to play with. I think I'm going to, I have some pre-mixed orange, so I'm going to use a little bit of that. But it is very pumpkin-y, and I don't want it to be that bright. So I'm going to get a little bit of brown happening. If you need to mix your own brown, it's equal parts of red, yellow, and blue. Am I going to use my big brush for this? I think I want to move to my medium brush for this area. And again, I'm just putting it on as kind of like background and base so I can build everything else on it. Okay, so, dun dun dun. Let's get this brush going. Let's get my medium size brush. Okay, I think I'm going to do similar to what I did before, where I want to get some white base happening first. Oh, you know what? No, I need some water first. Yes, water it up. Some white. Okay, let's dab some orange. Let's dab a little bit of brown just to get some different colors happening. And again, this is our base, and then we can play with things afterwards. I'm just trying to get the colors down and where I want things, and then we'll play with it. Okay, so now I need to get this side going. I'm going to just get water on my brush, and yes, it already has color on it, and that's okay, because I want that color on this side too. My perspective is looking weird. Okay, so there's a few things going on. When I look at my camera, I need to just straighten that up a little bit, just so, yeah, that's better. It's kind of looking like at an angle, so it was looking very weird to me. I'm always looking at the screen just to get a better view of it, and sometimes that throws me off. Just gonna dirty it up with the brown in here and the orange. Okay, so now we have like where we want this to live, which is good and nice and pretty. Okay, so now I want to get some of the background trees in place. So I want to play a little bit with that. Now there's a few ways to do. So obviously there's some trunks that are very massive and very close to the foreground. There you go. And then there's some areas like back here that is just like a bunch of green. So you know there's trees, but you really can't tell like what's what tree, right? And we have some of that. And then some of these you can see that there's like a tree here, there's some branches. So there's going to be some different elements that we want to play with on this. So I think regardless, I think I still want to play with putting in some trunks of where the trees live, even if it's kind of this randomness behind here, just so I have a basis of where they're living, so then I can put in more details. So the way I'm going to do that is, I think I'm still probably going to use my medium brush. So it can give me still like a controlled line, I think. We'll try it. I'm going to try it, and then if it fails me, then I'll use my more thin brush to play with. So like on this side, again, there's a lot of green happening. Obviously, I know there's a nice big trunk here, but I'm not going to worry about that guy yet because that's in front of all this other stuff happening. So I want to get in some like thin kind of vibes of trees that are living back here. And then I'm going to use this as my guide, so when I put more branches and stuff, maybe there's a branch coming this way, another one's coming like that. And I'm not worrying too much about even if they stick together or not. Just the vibe of there being branches and stuff happening there. So there's just some branches happening. Okay. And then I'm going to get some green. So you can mix green by mixing blue and yellow. Or if you have a pre-mixed green, which I do, and I'm going to be using some of it. I'm being very low on my pre-mixed green. I'm still going to be putting some yellow on here because it's nice to have some variety and change up the color a bit. Okay, so now that I have those branches of where I want them, I want to play and put in some trees, but I still want to kind of put them in as like, here's a tree here, here's a tree here, and so forth and so on. So let's pick one of the green, doesn't really matter which, right? And we have just like some brush happening, right? But there's still some peeking, you can still see a little bit of sky coming through. So let's play with that. So we have, I'm just going to dab with this green. Same brush I just used for the brown, so there's still some brown in it. So every once in a while it kind of pokes it with some brown, and that's actually okay. Just gonna dab, 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 and have little feelings of greenery come into play. Okay. Okay, so again, just like little feelings of that. Then I want to change that green up a little bit and get like another value happening. So I'm going to put in a little bit of yellow. And I'm going to do the same thing and just put in a little bit of, I'm using the same brush, I'm just adding a little bit of yellow to my brush, and I'm just putting this like yellowy green into some of the areas now. And again, my brush is still dirty from the other greens, so sometimes the colors mix a bit. Right on the actual, as I'm pushing, there's still paint that's in the barrel of the brush. So you might get some other of the colors that like pop back out again. And everything's wet. So I'm going in the gaps. As I'm going in the gaps, I'm still, because the brush is still touching some of the wet paint, and then it's pulling some of it. So it's kind of mixing it, but like, I feel very like naturally and randomly. And I think that makes it look like there's a lot more texture and a lot more layers to it. I want to keep a little bit of the blue still poking out. Okay, so we have a kind of like a nice bushy tree happening over here. Over here. Okay, I'm going to go back to get some of that green. Maybe I'm going to put a little more brown in there, actually. I want it to be a little bit darker, but I still want it to feel green. So I just want to add a little bit more darkness into some areas, especially near the bottom here where it would be more dense. There's another bush in front, so we'll probably play with that after. Some of these here. So let's see. Let's maybe put in, I'm gonna go with brown. I'm gonna put in the foreground a bit of a brown. Separation, which is almost like a bush or something that's sitting in front of this background. We'll see if it works. So everything's still wet, so everything's still blending, but I just want to make this a little bit more in the front. We'll see if that looks more like, yeah, it looks like it. It's good. It's working. It's working. There we go. Cool. There we go. Green. Green background happening over here. Okay. So what else do we got going on? So we got some more trees in the background too. So we have another nice big, I was gonna say fluffy. This tree reminds me of a fluffy tree, I suppose. Okay, so that, I'm gonna again get some brown. So okay, that guy's living like here, more or less. Pretty thick. Okay, so we have the guy that's living there. We have some other ones. I don't know if we want to put them in right now. Maybe we will. Not sure, maybe. Another one like here. One at. Okay. Looks like a big old guy that's really right here too. So let's see. Is that one actually further in? I think so. You know what? Let's see. I think this big guy was actually a bit more over. Okay. Let's not worry about that just yet. So on the side, there's a tree here, another one here, another one here. And I'm just putting this in with brown paint because, again, we're going to have lots of branches and stuff, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And we can always thicken up some of the trunks that we think are going to be more prominent, like those ones. You don't want trunks where the road continues. You'll see that there's like light here, because there wouldn't be any trunks at the end of the road. It's on the side of the road. So there's almost like it's brighter right down the center here, which kind of mirrors this yellow line in the road. So we'll just want just to draw your attention to that. Okay, there. And then we have a big old fat guy right here. Nice big fat tree. And again, I'm not worrying too much about how it looks. I just want to kind of like sketch in where my trees are going to be with the paint, and then we'll fill it in and play with them afterwards. Okay. Right, and then there's some little semblances of trees in the background here, one here, another one over back here somewhere. Another one like here. Oh man, come on. Okay. And then we have a nice big thick guy on this side too. Whoop. My sleeve got caught there. So this guy goes here. A nice big guy like that. And then that's all big trunk guy. There's a little bit more in the foreground too. That's where the exit lives. Okay, let's put the big trunk guy on this side too. Moving, let's put some of them in. So we have this big massive one that sits kind of like here, and he goes up like here and here, and again, let's put this in. Coloring. So I just put some brown, black, I put some orange just to start getting kind of like this differences of color happening, but I'm going to be adding more to it and playing more with it more specifically afterwards. Okay, and then we have that tree in the background. We have this nice big trunk that's living like here or so. Okay, so we have it kind of planned out where these main trees are going to be. I don't think I really did that. Should do a little bit more here actually. Okay, let's go back and do that too. It's funny because now notice our background that we actually did make it into a light blue. It looks very white right now because everything on top of it is so dark. And that's alright. That'll still work nicely in our favor. Put some more trees in here. A little bit more. Okay, there we go. I think that makes me feel a little better about that. Maybe another one here. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. There we go. Alright. Now let's add to all of this. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to put some more green. So let's start again in the background. So I want to work a little bit back here because there's some green that's sticking out behind this big, huge guy. I'm going to just clear off my brush slightly. Get some of the black out. Okay, so we're going to get the green. We're going to do similar to what we did on this side, but I do want to see about a few things. So we have some green that's poking out behind this tree. So I'm just going to get this green and just dab. Kind of come down as if there's like some branches or something sticking out behind there. That. It's a little darker on this side, so I'm just going to get a little bit darker happening. I put a little bit of brown into it, just dirtying it up a bit. Get it a little darker on that side. All right, so now let's put in some more of these trees. So I noticed that with some in the background, there doesn't look to be much greenery on them. Like some you just see the actual trunk or some of the branches coming off of it. So I want to put that in place, and I think I'm going to use my finer brush to do that. And let's do that now. Is the right one I want? Yes, I think so. Okay. Okay, so maybe I'll pick like this one here. I'm just gonna thicken it up a little bit. Make it more prominent. Okay. And then I want to get a little bit of branches coming out. The idea of it just sticking out in different spots there. Again, we're going to have more things on top, but I just want it to have this vibe of just like little lines and little branches sticking out. Let's put this guy too. And I'll add some green and stuff to it, or greenery. Put some brown before I get the green in. Okay. Let's get some green happening. So let's just, which one are we going to do with this guy here? I'm just going to dab some. We've been painting top of the trunk that we have, but then the trunk will still stick out sometimes and you can still see it. And then there's like this little bushy thing here. Make it a little bit brighter. Make it a little darker underneath it, certain spots. So I have a little bush happening over there. Okay. A little darker in some spots in this tree. Okay. Now let's put in some more. So let's get this tree more green. Okay, so let's just start. I'm just going to bring it out as if the branches are just flopping out on either side. actually getting quite dry as we're going through, so I have to keep refreshing. Acrylic paint can dry really quickly, so I'm going to get a little bit of green happening there too. Just touch it a little bit. Now I want it to be a little darker in the inside, so I'm putting a little bit of brown into my green because I want it to be a little darker in the core. You might even want to use a little bit of black too, but you want to be very careful whenever you use black because black can overpower things very quickly, so you just want to be conscientious of how much you use of it. Okay, I'm going to get a little bit of brightness. I'm going to put a bit of a yellow back on some of the tips of these branches that should live over here. And similar pattern. Oh man, my yellow. I have to keep getting the yellow because everything's really wet, so every time I touch it, it just mixes into the other color. So you end up having to get more paint often. So I'll show you a bit closer like what that's looking like. So it's just a bunch of trees happening, different colors, different ideas, and you see it in the background too what it should be looking like. Okay. And it looks like there's a bit of like a yellowy, I don't know, like some kind of shrubby thing happening behind this tree. So I'm gonna add that guy in because I think it makes it look really nice. So I'm just gonna put in a little bit of yellow and just dab it, just to get the feeling of that other bushy thing that's living there. There you go. Cool. And I'll go over that tree again just to emphasize it a bit more because right now okay. Cool. So we have that vibe on that side, which is looking decent enough. Okay, so now maybe we'll play more with the trunk on this side. So, okay, so I got some black, and I want to bring black all the way down to really give it a nice solid line on that side. Okay. A little bit more black up in the middle here. And I want it to feel streaky. Okay. But there are some like white lines in here too, so get the white on top of this is going to be tricky because it's going to blend immediately. But just to get the feeling of it. Okay, so the tree kind of has a bit more life to it now. You can see that, so I'll put some dark and some light. Actually, it's really bad lighting, it's hard to see much. One of my light bulbs went out, and I definitely noticed a difference. Okay, I'm just going to add a bit of a black, slightly, just to separate it, so you know that it's sitting here in the foreground, and then I'll show what that looks like. Okay, so I just put more of a definition line on that side. Okay. That trunk looks a lot better. All right, where else do we want to go? I want to play with this trunk next as well. It's very brown, this one, which is nice. So I think I want to go in and add a bit more of a brown color. And then make it more formal and just need more things in front of it, but that works out. Just stands nicely, and then it also has a bit of a line on either side, and it's a bit darker. I'm just gonna pop that in, just so it has a bit there, like so. And then I think I'm gonna try to put in another little thinner one, just on the other side. I think I lost how nice and bright that guy was, so I'm just gonna try to put in that brown back in the middle. That brown really is nice and bright, and it makes the guys stand out more. I think that looks a little bit nicer. I'm gonna put like a drop of orange in there too, I think. A little bit of orange. Ooh, that drop became significant, but you know what? I'm gonna go with it. Let's just bring it down this tree, and maybe that's gonna lighten it up the way we want it to be. Well, she worked out okay. Okay, cool. Awesome. Okay, so we want to do some more of the background green before we get the ones that are more noticeably in front. However, what am I saying? Okay, so there's some green stuff happening here, so let's do that. I think let's do some of that in the background. So we jump to the front. But green paint is almost out. Okay. So there's some like bushes and stuff happening behind some of these guys, so I'm just going to pop that bush in there, and then we can again always put in more coloring on top of the trees afterwards to define the branches and stems. But it is lighter in here. So I want to keep it lighter in there in this area. I went a little rogue there, but that's alright. Play with that. But okay, so I'm just putting in a little bit of darker bits just to show that it's a little bit more dense and there's some shadows happening lower and around here. Same thing on this side, we need to get some green happening before we get all of those. Okay, so, all right, so some of the background is there now, so now let's put in back in some of the trees that are poking out in here. Okay, so this guy here, so it's a big colored bit. Oh, that's not what I want to do. The bush. That's fine. Okay. So let's put in some of the green that would live on top of some of these trees. I'm just getting the green and I'm just dabbing slightly, keeping some of the background still in effect. I don't want to cover it all up. I want to still have it happen there. I'm just using the one color right now, and then we can add some more green to it. Or if you have other greens, you can kind of go back and forth and do it however whatever you prefer. You can see I'm just kind of tapping and going back and forth a bit just to fill it in a little bit. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing on this side. Okay, so we have kind of the feeling of like lots of branches and a lot of trees back here. Okay. then we can put in, it's actually quite dark, so I don't know if I want to put in a little bit of black. I kind of do. I'm going to add in a little bit of darker down the middle of where the trunk is. A little bit of black because definitely some of these branches are actually darker than what we see. That feeling happening. That one's a little much, I think. Tone that down a little bit. There's some good depth happening. I feel like some of that looks a little weird, so I'm just gonna dab it up a little bit because I need to mess up some of the lines because we have like lots of bush happening in front too. Darker than others patches. Just continuing this dab into the ground cover. I'm just putting in some of the light spots and the dark spots just to build that out and start to build that out down. A little darker. There we go. It's looking nice and full. Good. I'm going to get some more of this orange still back into this area. I feel like we lost it a little bit. Let's see how this side is looking. We still need to get more of this green and grass cover. Okay, put some more green. And we're going to play with this side now. Oof. Okay. And I still want to play with some of those trunks. Has a good vibe so far though, so that's working. Okay, so let's get the green. Let's just go and create like some bushy things happening here. the green. I'm just putting a little bit of white too. There we go. So we have, I don't know how the white's working. I'm not digging the white actually. Let's just tone that down a little bit. Probably should have went yellow. Okay, so now let's get that orangey. I'll get some brown. I'll just fill this kind of ground cover with these dabs. Some brown here. The path, yay! Okay, so I'd say I'm pretty happy with the sides there. I want to still play with this trunk for sure. So this one, let's go there first. Okay, so I'm seeing that it's actually quite dark, this guy. So I'm just starting by putting some water on him. Just so when I get my black paint, it should smoothly allow me to paint and have control over where I want it to go. And then, okay, let's get this base nice and dark here. Blend it in a little bit. Ooh, we don't want that to go away. Darken up that tree nicely. Put a little bit of white in here. We see it a little bit in our inspiration image. Now as we're doing it, again, my brush is still dirty from the black, so it all just kind of blends in, and I'm just lightly going on top of it just to still have this like streaky bark vibe happening. Okay, and I'm seeing that it's a little bit too light, so I'm just going to get it a little more black in here, like that. That's that guy, I think, but I think I still want to make it a little bit darker up here too. Okay, there you go. Maybe like that. Yeah, I'm happy with that now. Okay, so now let's go to this guy on this side. We're gonna do the same thing, so let's just wet him up. And it's okay, because I have black on my brush, but that's fine, because we're gonna play with some other colors. Make that work really good. Okay, and this guy definitely there's some nice dark in him, but there's some nice, ooh, my paint's running. That's okay. There we go, just dab it out. There we go, fix that nicely. Okay, so where do we want to go here? I want some of that brown. It's actually kind of light, so I'm just going to make it a little bit lighter. I want it to be lighter in here. I'll throw in that white right in this area. That's where I see it. Okay, let's get a little bit of orange in here too. You see a little bit of that glow happening. And that tree. Like that. So now it already has a bit of that color happening. Go back to the brown. And I want to go back to my black actually and put that back in. I'm just kind of playing back and forth with the colors to get all of these beautiful streaks and strokes on this. Actually kind of comes out more like that realistically. The trunk is really wider at the bottom. There we go. That looks nice. Okay. Let's smooth that out a little bit. Okay, so we have that. So that's how that guy looks now. Okay, so I think I'm good with that one. And then we can touch up the other ones if we want to, or we can leave them as is, really up to you. And then now we want to do that road piece, and so that maybe want to play a little bit with that. So again, we can try and get this texture that's happening if you want to, or we can just kind of play with the color a bit, make it a little bit darker, and then get those lines in the road. So I think for me, so the way I'm going to start this is, so there's like a white line also on the edge of the road there to kind of show where the edge of the road is. Just noting that, I'm not putting that in just yet. Okay, I'm going to go back to my bigger brush. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing as I did when I first started, and I'm just going to wet down this whole road area. Okay, and we're going to do the same kind of thing that we did when we started. I'm going to put just some white on here. That's because I like to work on the wet paint, and now that I know where this is going to live and how it's going to look, then I'll be able to manipulate it to the color that I want it to be, and then we'll add the yellow lines at the end. Or almost at the end, I should say. Okay, so now let's get some black. alternately. You can pre-mix the gray color that you want on your palette and then apply it. It's really up to you how you want to play with that. I'm going to get a little bit more black. Mine's running out there. I do want it to be a little darker than that. Let's bring it out. For me, I don't think I'm going to go with putting in all the texture of the road. That's not really what I want to do. So I'm just going to get it to the color that I kind of like and play with some of the texture by just putting in a couple different hues and variations on the block, just so it creates it just with the lines and just with the mixing of the paint. Not really creates it. It's going to have its own kind of texture, I guess. Okay, so I'm seeing there's a little bit of black that comes from like down here out. So I want to have that. It's definitely darker. And then we have some shadows happening. I'll put some of those in. And again, I see another one coming on the side. Okay, and then I'm seeing a few things. So I'm just going to switch to my thinner brush to get some of those details in. So, okay, so I'm seeing that it is lighter over here, a little bit of lightness down here in the path. So I'm going to put a little bit of white just on either side, slightly, to show that. There's a little bit up here too. I'm just putting a little bit just to try to make it a little bit lighter as it comes closer. Okay, now the other thing that I see, okay, so obviously we have the yellow, so I need to put, let's pop that in, I think, and then that will give us a good place to go from there. Okay, am I using the thinnest? Maybe in a bit. Okay, let's start with the yellow. So that is, goes to like where we can't even tell. And it comes down. I'm just going to do the whole thing. Right now it's still on wet paint, so the yellow is not sticking very well. I probably will have to do 2 coats for this guy. Okay, I'm going to get my thinner brush so I can Okay, so I kind of tilted it a little bit. I know it's a little bit of a tilt there, that's why I wanted to do that, but I don't know if it's working the way I want to change that, or try to. There you go. Okay, that's fine. So I'll have to still touch that up because it's not where we want it to be yet. I want it to be more yellow. Okay. But there is like a white line on the side, so we're going to put that in too. Right, and the same thing on this side, so okay, cool. And there you go. So we have that on both sides, so it's making it look nice. Okay. All right, and then I still need to get this yellow more yellow. I think we're going to do that by I have to wait till it's dry, I think. I don't have patience. Oh no! That's not what I wanted to happen. I'm going to put in the line in the middle, and I might touch up the yellow afterwards, but just to complete it. So I'm just going to hold it a bit closer just so I can have a touch more control. Thicker. So I have that down the middle, pretty curvy. I think that's better. Yeah, still a little curvy. My hand likes to curve it, but you know what? It's hand painted. That's why. It's not a photograph. It's hand painted, so it's not going to be perfect. And I'm going to accept it and enjoy it nonetheless. I still want to make this a little bit more yellow. A little bit brighter. Okay. I think I will keep it as is for now. And we're going to wrap it up. So, there we go. Okay. So, back up. So there is my completed painting of Open Road. And it wasn't too bad. Took, what, an hour and a half? Of course, you can spend more time, and there's definitely more detail in the trees or in the trunks that can be added. You can really just make it your own, so however you want to do it, feel free. If you have joined me with the session, or if you're painting along and you're watching the recorded video, please snap a picture of your painting and share it, because I'd love to see how you've made it your own. It's always fun to share and see everyone's pictures. And that would wrap up our weekly free painting party. So I hope you've had a great time, and I will see you all next week. On Saturday again, there'll be 3 new photos that you'll be able to vote on, to whichever one has the most votes by the following Tuesday at noon will be the one that we will paint next Wednesday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that's about it. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day and rest of your week. Take care, paint partiers. Bye.